No, I think we are recording now. Okay. So, hello. Hi. Long time no see. We are Lee and Simon. Hello. Weird. So, we decided that we want to start podcast and that we came up with a name, and our name is
Oh, me doing the name? I me doing the name? Okay. Our name is Borderline Intelligent.
yes. So we hope it's smart,
I'm kind
we
of
hope it's
proud of the name.
funny, we hope it's ironic, we're so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
cool
In any
story.
case, my name is Leah. I'm an immigration lawyer in Seattle, Washington.
Okay. I'm Simon. I do AI research currently at MIT and did like tech stuff before.
For reasons, we decided that we're going to do it in English. We're going to try and we're going to see if anybody else is interested but us. We're going to keep doing it even if it's just us. We're just going to use it as a reason to hang out and talk. But let's see if somebody else is interested. So, anyways,
All right, let's do it. Let's already
yes.
do
No,
it.
one more thing. We decided to switch. So this week, one week is gonna be me talking about law and him asking questions, and the other week it's gonna be him talking about computer, AI, stuff like that, and I'm asking questions. So today is my turn. It's immigration. Go.
All right. Okay. So yeah. So, like the way it's gonna go is I'm gonna, ask a few questions about what's happening with like immigration and law. Right now, there's no shortage of it, but I just want to understand it. I'm like a layperson. I don't know much about like law and all how this works. So, let's see. So one of the stories that's a lot in the news is the story of deporting, I think it's like a Salvadorian citizen, right? To El Salvador by, administrative mistake, right? I think his name is Abrego Garcia, but I don't know how to
That's
pronounce
the case
this.
that was at the Supreme Court like yesterday,
That's
right?
right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So like I'll explain my like, understanding what's happened and, tell me what you think. So I think it seems what's been happening is like as part of the recent what government has been doing where they would take I think it's Venezuelan and other citizens and put them in a plane and fly to El Salvador as a way of deporting them. And it turns out that one of them was, at least one of them was not given the due process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what this means is he was like here in US in some status that I think it's like, there was like some deportation order, but the judge stopped. But okay, let's start with that. Can you explain what this means? Like, what was the status of him, being in US and,
Okay, from what we know publicly, he was in removal proceedings and deportation proceedings a while ago. He was placed in deportation proceedings, again, from the information that we got, for alleged association with gangs. And they suspected that he was a gang member from El Salvador. And you can win three different things when you apply for asylum in removal proceedings. It's either actual asylum that will lead to the green card and citizenship, or what's called withholding of removal, which means you have order of deportation, but they're withholding it for now because they consider it to be dangerous for you to go back. And the reason why someone may get withholding and not asylum is because either criminal history or discretionary issues, for example, gang affiliation and stuff like that. And also when the judge in the deportation process says, I am willing to give you withholding of removal, do you accept or you reserve appeal? And if you accept, that becomes a final order, which means you have order of deportation against you, and they're withholding it for now. It is implied that at any point in time, they may go back to the judge and say, hey, reopen this process and actually deport him because it's not dangerous for him anymore. Or he became a person that is so horrible that it should have been taken for him, like he committed a horrific crime. So, and that what happened in his case. And a lot of times people accept withholding of removal because they don't understand the consequences. They just think it's asylum. And sometimes they do understand they're not going to get anything better. So they accept it. So in his case, we don't know why he accepted it. But now, instead of following the process of actually going back to court and saying to the judge, hey, it's not dangerous for him anymore, or he's a horrible person, deport him, they just took him from the street and sent him on a plane to El Salvador. That will happen.
Gotcha. Okay, so it sounds like what happened, like it seems that they could that there is like an avenue for them to say, yeah, there's like either new information or is it like there has to be new information? It's like we changed our mind. So like there has to be something new, right? Like some new information
Yes.
service. Oh, I'm saying we think that now safe for him to return.
It's safe for him,
And
he committed a new crime, or he lied in his original application. These are the three normal reasons.
gotcha. And they're supposed to go back to the immigration judge and say, okay, this is what changed, and now, we think he should be deported. So like there is
Mhm.
an avenue.
Yeah,
None of that happened,
none of that
right?
happened. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So the next thing, right, is he was on a plane to El Salvador, where, from what I understand, right, like presumably they've been putting in this jail that the like that exists in El Salvador. So one thing that I'm kind of curious about is, so apparently U.S. is paying El Salvador for this, and what you read in the news when we have more budget, we'll be like, psh, and there's gonna be like a headline that that's like an official thing. We're paying like I don't know 20,000 for a year to detain them. What's the legal status of that? Because it seems like we got some people and then, we're not just deporting them to a different country. We know they're going to jail and we're paying for it. How does that connect with previous practice? What are your thoughts?
So it's a multi-layered thing.
Yeah.
First, in theory, all we do, we deport a person. And we don't care what happens to the person in that country. We just did our job.
Hmm.
And if they put them in unhumane prison and do bad things, what we have nothing to do with it. One thing. Second thing is that we could have been having an agreement, which is, I don't think it's public. I haven't heard about it. That when we send a person who is not a citizen of El Salvador, El Salvador has to accept that person, has to agree to take them in.
Yeah, that has to be the case anyway, right? Because we're sending like non-citizens there,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
non-El
So
Salvadorian
that has
citizens.
been a practice for a long time. That's nothing new. But in order to El Salvador to accept them, there had to be an agreement. And
Yeah.
one of the options for the payment could have been that we're paying for housing these people because they're not citizens of El Salvador. And because it's hard for us to remove them to their own country, that's what we do. And that's what we're paying for housing. Could be one thing.
Yeah.
Another thing, it can be that it's the same logic, I think, that is in Guantanamo. Although Guantanamo is the military base, so it may be different. Anyway, so they want to keep as many immigrants in immigrant jail here in the United States. However, under the current weave of whatever. Um, However, there is limited space. We do not have more immigration jails than we do. And they want to put everyone there. So it can be that they are using the facilities in El Salvador as a quasi-immigration jails for the United States, and they're just housing them there as if they were here in immigration jail. So that could be another.
But like what then happens at the end of a year? Like
In
there's
theory, in theory, they can just either take them back or arrange their actual deportation to their actual country of citizenship, or El Salvador
mm,
can just release them on the street, which El Salvador under current president will not do.
got it.
President
Got
of
it.
El
Okay, so it
Salvador.
could be that they're just kind of contracting out
Yes.
uh, like so they would, ordinarily put them could have put them in immigration jail
Uh-huh.
here, but since they're like
Uh-huh.
over like saturated or whatever, like they're using that.
But they have not announced it publicly, so it's just my guesses.
Gotcha. Is there like legal precedent for that? Like, can they do it, or like,
President for
what's the legal standing of this?
sending people to a country that is not their citizenship, yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, but
Mexico where they
doing sending them to a prison, right? Outside of US as a because like like contracting out the prison time somewhere else.
prison, no. That's the new part. But again, it's my speculation because we don't know if we're sending them there just because we're sending them there, or we're sending them there under a presumption that they go to jail, or we're sending them there to be housed by the government of El Salvador.
Is there a way to find out? Is there any kind of transparency, or like someone as a lawyer, or yeah, what's the way? Or is it completely
It
non-transparent?
can be FOIA'd, and I'm pretty sure we need to Google it because I don't know, but I'm pretty sure ACLU
Okay.
or someone like that, should have done it already.
Got it. Okay. So next time we'll follow up. We'll
Yeah.
follow up of what's happening there. Okay. All right. So there's been this person, right? And seems like due process wasn't followed. Um, and yeah, what's up with it seems that it got to the Supreme Court. Like, can you tell me the story of what happened so far?
I may be wrong on because every day, boom, 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 stuff happens. So I have a general idea of what happened, but it's not like you can hold me to the T, steps of
Oh
the.
yeah, by the way, for if anyone listening to this, you can't hold us accountable for anything we say here. All right.
We are just blubbering.
All right.
Yeah. So anyway, uh, his deportation was appealed as a violation of due process, and the case got to the Supreme Court on the issue whether or not he was properly deported. And the Supreme Court said, if I'm not mistaken, I know that they sent it to the lower court to decide on
Oh
the.
yeah, okay, yeah. I seem to. Okay, so right, so like, this is why we have like you need to do this podcast every day, not every week. But I
Exactly.
think what's been happening, right, is in a lower court, the judge said, you need to bring him back.
Yeah.
And the government, I think, like tried to claim that, this is out of jurisdiction, right? Like he's in El Salvador, so we can't do anything about it. And I think what got to the Supreme Court, right, is, whether the court can't even order the government to do this or something like this. Does
Yes.
that
And the
sound?
Supreme Court said that yes, the court may order this part. What they can order, the court cannot go and order our government to make the other government to bring someone back. That's not the thing. But our courts can order the government to do everything reasonably possible to have that person to come back.
Yeah.
So that's what was ordered. And the last thing that happened was that the judge ordered that. I think it was already lower court who ordered that. And the government said, nope, you just gave us too little time to do that. Give us more time. We don't care.
Yeah.
So today, I believe they appeared in court, and the DOJ person just said, we don't know what's happening. We don't know. We don't have information. That's it. So at this point, we see clear like fight between the executive branch and the judicial branch, because judicial branch is trying the bottom line of this whole thing, which started with one small person, now became basically a demonstration of what's happening in the country since January 20th, because the judicial branch is telling them you're violating the process. You have to do things by the book. And these people are like, we don't care. We're going to do what we're going to do. And, what are you going to do with us? That's basically the bottom line of what's happening. And we are going to see what happens, what comes out of it to understand what country we're living in.
Okay, so right, let's talk about this. Okay, so it seems that yeah, there's like many parts of a story here with the pattern of there's like a court decision and the government is it like yeah how to like what does it look like? Is it like they're not complying or they're partially complying or they're like, yeah, what does it look like?
They're not complying without saying we refuse to comply. They're saying not
Uh-huh.
enough time, we don't have the information, you asking for unreasonable things, yada yada yada.
Got it. And it seems that is there a difference in this whether like the lower court says something to do, like tells them to do something versus the Supreme Court saying them to do something?
At
Is
this
there a
point,
difference
they
there?
just act the same way about any court. The funny thing what happened is I guess current administration was so sure of themselves that the judiciary not going to do anything to them and will take all the decisions of the Supreme Court and lower courts will be in their favor. They were absolutely sure of that. So they acted
Hmm.
on that. And all of a sudden they see the resistance and they just like, defiant against everything. So they did not expect the Supreme Court to be against them. That's
Got it.
the thing happened.
Okay, so the higher level question is how does this in general work, right? Like, so there is, like, in this case, what are the powers of the judicial branch and what are the powers or maybe the responsibilities of the executive branch?
In regards to
Like, in regards to situations like this, when there's like a disagreement between, what executive branch wants to do and judiciary branch, is there like what is known about like the set of is there a precedence? What are the checks and balances of, this disagreement?
the whole checks and balances thing, the funny part is it only rests on goodwill, on
Hmm.
respect to the rule of law. That's it. If that part is gone, everything, the system will collapse. And so right now, why this whole thing is so important, even though it's just about one guy and it's only about immigration and stuff like that, because it shows us what's happening with the rule of law in the country. Because in the big scheme of things, let's say Supreme Court says, do this, the government is just blatantly says, nope, nothing is going to happen because the government, the executive branch, is the one who controls implementation of the decisions of the courts. So if they don't even comply themselves with all the decisions, like that's it. That's the whole point of judiciary is just gone.
Is this what people call a constitutional crisis?
One of the things I think constitutional crisis can come in many shapes and forms, but that can be one of them. Yeah, basically, it's going to sound so posh, but democracy is on the line. So, and I am at least yesterday and today, I'm very happy to see that the Supreme Court's made good decisions. They're
Yeah.
not as, I don't know, liberal, progressive, whatever you call it when you read them. They're pretty conservative, like to me. They're not like, oh my God, this is happening. They're not crying, whatever. But they're like, no, do this. It's your job to do this. And now we're gonna see what happens with the executive branch. What are they gonna do about it?
Got it. Okay. All right. So like basically the way it works, it sounds like they will rest on a premise that like if the judicial like if a judge does a verdict, right, or says something you need to at least the Supreme Court, right? There's an expectation on the executive branch to follow that, right? There's is there
Yep.
okay. Did it happen before? Like like what are the nom like kind of the notable cases, or maybe it didn't happen before at all, where like some higher levels of judicial or like a judge making an order and the government complier doesn't come. I think there's like a famous, like there must be some famous ones.
So here's the deal. We need to look at the Supreme Court as a thing. As a thing, Constitution does not provide for the Supreme Court. There is no thing in
What do you
Constitution
mean?
that says we no. They establish judiciary system in the
Yeah.
Constitution, but they do not establish Supreme Court in the Constitution. And I'm
Oh
sure,
yeah, it appeared later. Like yeah, tell me the story.
yeah. So it's a. I'm not gonna be the one because there is a very good podcast on this. It's called More Perfect, and there is an episode specifically on how Supreme Court was created. So I highly recommend everybody go and see it. And I will put this in the description. Ding, 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 ding. So anyway, not in the Constitution. So in theory, if they are disappearing tomorrow, it's not going to violate the Constitution. And the judges of the Supreme Court from the beginning, it was a very weird position because they don't even have to be lawyers. They can
Is
be.
that usually the case for the judges, or is it only the Supreme Court
No, it
judges?
was in the very beginning that it happened, when they just happened to happen. And then after that, it was historically just, very respectable lawyers who blah, 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 blah. But originally it was not the case. Second of all, the whole idea is kind of weird. We have 9 people who are judges for life, who are the best of the best, allegedly, and whose word is the final word on things. And the Supreme Court doesn't have to take all the cases. They themselves decide what cases they take. And also, if you look at the decisions through the years, they're very tailored by the result. So it's not like we really thought carefully and we considered it from all the perspectives and then we arrived to this decision. When you read the decisions, what it seems to happen is they know what the outcome they want to get to, and then they tailor the logic to it. That's what happened with Gore v. Bush, or was it Gore v. US? I don't remember. So who won the election? That part. When I read that decision in my constitutional law class, I was like, whoa, wait. I feel like they just knew what they're going to decide. And the professor was like, yeah, of course they knew. So it's completely politicized. That's what we saw what happened with abortion, right? In 72, I want to say 70 something, all of a sudden the Supreme Court decided that yes, the law always have been providing for the choice by the woman over her body. See, it's clearly this. And then a couple of years ago, they're like, whoa, 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 it's actually not for us to decide. We were wrong there. It's up to the states to decide. So
this was like what Roe versus Wade
Roe
appeal.
v. Wade. Yeah, that's exactly the case. So the outcomes of the cases are politicized and unpredictable, and they very much depends on how many justices are liberal, how many justices are conservative, who was appointed by whom. So the whole idea of the Supreme Court being this, perfect, decision body, not really. It's a good checks and balances mechanism. That's all about that. That's all. I don't really care how good their decisions are because I don't expect much from them anymore. I just care that they say stuff and the executive branch does what they say. That's what holds it together.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And in that case, right, like in the case that we're discussing so far, they said that, like government should respect what the lower court told them to do, right?
Pretty much. Yes.
Okay. And right now they're like, it seems that the government told them that, okay, what did they tell them after the Supreme Court order? Like,
So
what
they
did the
came to
lower
the lower
court tell them?
court. Yeah, they came to first. They said you didn't give us enough time. You only gave us like 3 hours on a Friday, and then it's going to be a weekend. We don't have enough time because God forbid they work on the weekend. They don't do that.
Okay.
That's one thing. Then they showed up in court and they said, we just don't have information. We cannot do anything. We don't have.
Yeah. How is can you explain to us, like, what does that mean? Is that like normal? How does that, what are the implications of this?
It's not normal, that's for sure. Because if the court tells you to do stuff, you do stuff. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You don't come and say I don't have stuff. So I'm sure there were precedents on that. By the way, big cases, Roe v. Wade and others also being discussed in the episodes of The More Perfect. By all means, go listen to that. You're going to be so disappointed about the US, like in general. So
you're selling it hard.
I don't know where it came from that this is such a great country. We are good, we are okay, but we're flawed. Like we have our issues. It's not the heaven. So also good podcast is Now and Then. It ended before the elections or during the elections, and I have a suspicion that they did not want to continue with it just to not get punished for saying the wrong things. It's two historians who are discussing what's happening today and giving parallels to the previous time. So if you look at the history of the United States, we never did good. We never, like ever. So we had bad presidents, we had bad Congress, we had bad Supreme Court. Like it all been there already. It's just, comes back and then
Yeah. But
so
like coming back to this,
no, it's
like,
not normal.
yeah,
I'm sure there were precedents like that. It depends on what we consider normal. It has not been normal within the last, I don't know, modern history. I started practicing in 2010 as a lawyer in the United States. This is not normal since then. Let
got
put it that
it.
way.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, but like, what could be the next step? So, like, if right, like the court ordered the government to provide some information at least, right? Like, of what's happening with this guy, what are your steps that you're taking to bring him back, right? Or something like this. And the government's like, or the representative of the government, like, I have no information. What could the court do at this point?
They can give them more time in
Mm-hmm.
hopes that they're gonna actually come to their senses and do something.
Mm-hmm.
They can hold them in contempt. I have no idea what it's gonna look
What
like.
does it mean to hold the government in
Yeah, exactly. I like maybe this specific agent of the government, they're gonna be holding
Ah,
in contempt,
I see.
maybe. Um, or they can just roll over and not do anything. That's also an option. In which case, the other side probably will go back to the Supreme Court. But because it's so unprecedented to me, I don't even understand, like saying what? Look, they are not doing it. Like, what is the legal argument? I don't know. No idea.
Okay. All right. Okay. So sounds like we're witnessing and what is it? The, like this as you said, this like I don't know, what is it, a fight? Or how would you describe it? Or
A
like
crisis.
yeah,
Yeah,
crisis of
I
like
think it is a constitutional crisis. Yeah.
okay. All right. I don't know how to top that. But okay, so here's one. I want to ask one thing that like, I'm kind of interested in. So like I work at the university and, there's been more and more stories about the students or like researcher or postdocs or whoever who are on the visa, you know, finding out or like being denied. And from what I understand, the stories that I hear or like that you can read is a lot of times they don't know that this happened, right? Like it seems there is like an electronic system that tracks this. And there's one person like the high the maybe which you see in the news a lot is this student of the Tufts University who I think ICE agents got off the street, and this is how she found out that her visa and status are revoked. Others are finding out by, university staff who like work international students by like just checking in a database and seeing that this is like the recent story that, was kind of amazing to me is apparently there was like a research group to decided to withdraw the paper on evolution because the people in the US, like researchers in the US, were on a visa, and were worried that that could be like grounds for revoking the visa. I guess, yeah. What are your thoughts on this? How different it is from what is it before, and which parts are, yes, it's been always like this, and which parts are new?
So one thing, visa is given by the Department of State, right? One
Hmm.
one thing. Uh, seven is managed by the Department of Homeland Security, different agency.
That's the
And
electronic system, right, where the
yes,
student
that
visas tracked.
and I am trying to figure out because I didn't have a reason to work with students before because they got a visa, they came to study, they either completed studies and left, or they went to OPT, or everything was like by the book.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I think the reason for the system, right, is like a lot of those visas are contingent on them passing the exams and doing like the study, and that's the way for the universities or colleges to report that, yes, the student is still in a good standing or not. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had to deal with people who fell out of status, and they would come to me and say, hey, I'm undocumented now, what am I going to do? But I had nothing to do with why it happened, right? I was just dealing with people who are already out of status, and it was mostly their fault for not continuing studies and blah. So that's why I am not super familiar with status. So now I'm looking at it, and it's a kind of a weird thing, because visa is given by Department of State, right? It can be taken by the Department of State. CBP can either allow someone in the country or not allow someone in the country. DHS supposed to, I don't even know to do what. Like, what is their role in the whole this process? Because I-20 has been given by the college, and then that paperwork goes to the Department of State, and then all of a sudden DHS feels the need to get themselves inserted in this process and control it. So what they do through 7 is just sitting there and controlling it. And so,
like changing the, whatever the status of like the status or the visa in that database. Is that what you mean by controlling,
sure,
or what
but
do you
what
mean?
the heck is that database? It's just a database, right?
Yeah.
Because they are like monitoring body that can report someone to ICE, which is immigration police, that this person is undocumented, let's say, or
Yeah.
his visa was revoked or whatever. But what happens now is, and it should come from Department of State, that visa was revoked, or it should come from college saying this person is not studying anymore. They are not supposed to be the one who initiates the stopping the process of student being a student. And that's what they started doing. That's what I've never seen before. And so I've looked at the cases that are being reported, and it's been reported 2 things. Either you had a law violation, however minor it could have been. However, the cases that I've seen, they're pretty like, not great. Like selling alcohol to a minor, or DUI, and like driving under the influence. And the government have always been, it has always been very strict on DUIs. They just hate DUIs. So either DUI or something like that, and that causes them to revoke the visa. Even though by the law, it has to be only a super, super bad crime that can, affect this part. But now they're doing it for any minor violations. However, there's been a recent change in the law that could have affected this, and I'm going to explain right now why it could have been happening. So anyway, so it's either violation of the law, however minor, or it's expression of the views that are not in compliance with the US, whatever, like the line of thought or position or whatever. And it seems like a lot of that happens with anti-Semitism. So any support of Palestine are being considered this. Or it can be just, like with that woman with frogs, you just brought what you're not supposed to bring.
But that's different because like this is the border crossing,
Yeah,
as opposed to
exactly.
like being in the country.
Exactly. That's by CBP. They always had that right. They can do it. So the change in the law that could have affected this. A month ago,
What is the change in? Sorry, go ahead.
about a month ago, they passed the law in Congress, that is unprecedented. Since 2010, and even before then, I want to say the last time they were able to pass something as law happened in the 80s, when we had
In that area, you mean like in
immigration,
yeah.
anything in immigration through the Congress was
Mm-hmm.
U4U was the last one. Okay, U4U, big thing, blah blah blah. But something that affects everyone in the United States. The last time I think was in 2000. I mean, in the 1980s. I could have missed something after that, but that's the base. Just to show you how big of a deal it is, right?
Yeah.
And here the change in the law happened like this. It's completely unreal to me that they can pass something this fast about immigration, because normally whatever they try to do, it just gets stuck and never goes anywhere. So what change is? The change is that if you're arrested for certain crimes, and we don't know, did you actually commit it? Were you actually guilty? So the criminal process is not over yet, right? Just you've been arrested for this, or detained, or stopped, or whatever, right? And issued a cite for this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the domestic violence, theft, and a couple of other things that I don't remember right now on top of my head. So anyway, those sort of crimes, they trigger you being not eligible for a bond if ICE detains you. And
Okay.
it's never been like that before, because you had to have a conviction that makes you not eligible for a bond. Now, even just the fact that there is a case accusing you of doing something affects that part. And right after that, we're having this thing with SEVIS that responds to any minor crimes like this. So I am thinking that whoever runs SEVIS in the Department of Homeland Security, they took the guidance from that law and as a policy, you know, during the current administration, and now they're implementing this. About
Okay, but
yeah,
so like I guess what is the legal standing of different parts of like one of them is this expressing the views that like is different from a crime. I think like
yeah,
for this Tufts
yeah.
University student, she did
But we
like an
see a
op
lot.
anti-Israel
You could have
op-ed.
not seen it, but there is a lot of the criminal ones.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, what is the legal standing of the ones where it's like, so this means, so yeah, but what does this mean? Like, I guess when they come in, like with the government, I'm assuming it could come in and say, something happened with this person, they did something bad, and we're going to change the visa and the status. What is regulation? Like, what is regulating, how like what are the cases and how severe is the crime, or is it like completely their discretion, like what
No, no, no. They have to follow the process. It has to be, allegation, and then there should be consideration of that allegation, and then there should be decision, and da, 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 da. None of that is happening. And that's why lawsuits already started happening.
got
Because,
it, got it, got it, got
and
it.
the lawsuits are challenging not the fact that it was terminated. They can terminate it in theory, it's their right. But the
Yeah,
fact that the process for this, the internal process that should have happened, didn't happen.
got it. Okay, so for the like are they required to offer any explanation of like here's why we're doing this, like do they doing this in these cases?
Not necessarily. The problem is not the explanation. The problem is they have to have internal process and give explanation to the person whose visa gets revoked, whose status gets revoked. If
Yeah.
that is a part of the process, then they should have done it as well.
Oh,
So
I
that's
see. I
why
see.
it's
Okay,
even
so the
important to
problem
know.
is right. So like the reason we don't quite know what exactly triggers this is because they're not following the process.
Yep.
Because like so one of the things I think I saw it somewhere on Twitter, Blue Sky, or somewhere where like some lawyers say that they've seen things as minor as jaywalking triggering this. How do they know? Like I think I asked, didn't get a quite the answer. Like how do they know what has triggered it?
No, they're digging it. So they're saying like a person comes to them, service terminated, right? They're like, what had happened recently? And they
Yeah.
tell them, this happened, that happened. I guess it's just inferring that this is
So
the
it's just they're guessing, like
yeah,
based on what they heard. Okay, so there's no like confirmation.
yeah. Not
And
that I know of, no.
when it's like, but when it's a serious crime that like you described, is there some kind of explanation in that case that
There
if
should
that
be,
was,
but we do not see any serious crimes right now. We see
I see. Okay,
whatever.
so gotcha. So previously there was like serious crime happened, like alcohol, DUI, something. There is a process where the government is like, okay, there's this crime, that's why we're revoking the visa
Mm-hmm,
and the status. And
mm-hmm.
what we're seeing recently, and I think it's like in a pretty significant numbers, right? Like I think it's like hundreds of, visas get revoked.
We
And
don't
do we
know. We
not
don't
know?
know. We don't know. We just know what's been reported, right?
Yes, yeah,
It
it's been
can
reported.
be, it can be even bigger
Yes,
because we
yeah,
don't know.
at least
Yes,
hundreds.
but it's a wave. Let's put it this way. All of a sudden there is a wave.
Got it, got it. And it seemed like, is it some get the whatever the process and some don't, or is generally like most of this wave
No,
is
no, people
like,
have no idea that like nobody told them anything. And that's
got
what
it.
we see. We don't see cases where, oh, I've got the notice and then blah, no. We just like, oops, status is no more. So that's what happens. And that's why lawsuits are viable. And I also plan on doing those lawsuits because, like, what the heck?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. This could be a good stopping point.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, so that's fun. Any other
Yeah.
questions on your agenda?
I have a bunch, but I think we're out of time.
Oh, we are? What time is it? Yes, we are. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we plan on doing it weekly.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
But
we'll
yeah,
see how it
the
goes.
plan is to do weekly.
Yeah, but it was fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, thanks. Fun as always.
All right.
Under a very specific definition of fun.
Yeah, that's us. Are you gangsters? No, we're Russian.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.